We welcome now Josh Maples, agricultural economist with the Mississippi State University Extension Service. Hey, Josh, thanks for coming on.
Hey, Gerard, thank you.
You bet. So we wanted to talk to you today about all these reports we're seeing about the new World Screwworm and what sort of impact it might be making right here in the state of Mississippi. Of course, as you know, the agricultural industry is the state's largest. It's very critical to our economy, to jobs, et cetera. And, of course, it's critical to the nation and the world's supply of food and fiber and other commodities that our farms produce. What's this thing doing?
Yeah, it's a really big deal that thankfully we're not having to deal with in Mississippi yet, and hopefully we never have to. But from a animal production standpoint, from a pet standpoint, especially from a wildlife standpoint, if we're ever in a situation where we're dealing with the screwworm in Mississippi, it's really problematic, adds a lot of cost, and can cause a lot of damage. So right now it's in Texas primarily. The first case was found in June 3rd, or confirmed June 3rd. So we've had about a little over 30 cases in the U.S. so far. And really hoping that it doesn't get to Mississippi. But it's something we got to all kind of be thinking about and be cautious and be vigilant about trying to detect.
Well, I know that your specialty is the economic aspect of agriculture, but the obvious question is, what the heck is this, and where did it come from? I've never heard of a screwworm before. I dare say most of our audience probably hasn't. This seems to be new. I saw the same report. First place that apparently it surfaced was in Texas.
Yeah, so the screwworm, the easiest way to think about it, it really looks pretty similar to a housefly. If you think about the common housefly,
Huh.
you may have seen at some point, you left some trash out or something, and you
Yeah.
find some maggots on the trash, and so the flies lay the eggs on something decaying, and then that becomes maggots. And screwworm is kind of similar, but the key difference here is that the screwworm larvae, they feed on living flesh. So that's what makes it unique. And so whenever
Okay.
that fly is flying around looking for somewhere to lay her eggs, she's looking for an open wound. And when she lays those eggs on that open wound and they hatch, the larvae, they kind of look like screws, and they screw their way
Okay.
into living flesh and
Huh.
cause all kind of problems, and can ultimately, if they're not caught and detected and treated, which there are treatments, but if it's not caught and detected and treated, then it can kill the animal eventually, because it just creates a bigger and bigger wound, and then you worry about secondary infections. Uh, so it can be a big mess, and it's new to us right now, but this is something that we had big problems with in the U.S. in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and
Okay.
even 60s before eradicating it. So it's kind of a return of an old pest that we're trying to be vigilant about now.
Okay. So just to understand, crops aren't exposed. They're not at risk, right? We're talking about something that just goes after animals. So I assume that means cattle, pigs, hogs, chickens, etc.
Yep, that, and then also house pets, dogs and cats,
Okay.
and anything that with living flesh. People.
Interesting.
It's pretty rare because you pay attention to yourself. It's pretty rare for people to have to deal with it, but it's mainly an animal thing that we're concerned about. Cattle especially is getting a lot of attention.
Okay. Well, how does a farmer know that their cattle, for example, are being invaded by these screwworms, and then what do they do about it?
Yeah, so there's a lot of effort to detect right now. So there's traps out looking for flies, but really people dealing with livestock is kind of the front lines. So producers, people also dealing with their dogs and cats. If you see a cut or an open wound on your animals, it looks like it's got maggots or something in it. That's something you need to tell your vet about. Um, and so it takes cattle producers, for example, you have to pay a lot more attention to your cattle. You got to be looking at them pretty frequently to try to detect this, and then try to treat it. And then there's also this sterile fly technique, which I think is one of the most fascinating things about how You broadly try to prevent this is if you think about the life cycle of a screwworm, the female in particular, because that's the one that lays the eggs, it's about 21 days, can be a bit longer. Uh, but the way that we try to prevent this and the way we eradicated this back, decades ago, is we're producing about 100 million sterile male flies every week at a facility
Huh.
in Panama. And they literally dump these things out of airplanes. It's not the only way they do it, but they are
Wow.
releasing these sterile male flies to try to overwhelm the population of female flies. And so if the female she mates one time, if she mates with a sterile male, nothing happens, right? There's no eggs and she dies,
Okay.
and you can tamp this down. So the challenge, 100 million sounds like a lot, but we need more than that to be able to knock this
Wow.
back.
So I guess it's fair to say you're sort of fighting nature with nature in that respect.
Exactly. It's fascinating. It's a technique scientists figured out, back 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s as they were working through this. And there's, latest estimates are we need 400 to 500 million sterile flies to really combat this per week. And so
Oh
there's,
my God.
new production facilities coming online, but it just takes time to build those things. And we had this thing, Gerard, pushed down into Panama. And if you think about just the geography of Mexico and then down as you get into Central America, the further south you can push it, the smaller the area that you have to release these flies
Yeah.
over.
Makes sense.
Now that it's broken through that, um, it's gotten further north, and so we just got a bigger area, so we need more flies to cover that area.
Okay. Well, when's the last time in this country we had to deal with this problem, this screwworm problem?
Yeah, it was really the 60s, 50s, 60s, had some, reoccurrence in the 70s. We had a most recent case in the 2000s was in the deer in Key West, had isolated cases there that we were able to combat pretty quickly.
Okay.
But broadly from a livestock and pet and wildlife is a key one, because if you think about wildlife, out of the 30 plus cases that we've identified so far, none of those have been wildlife. It's all been livestock, sheep, goats, cattle, dogs. Um, but there's not a lot of people in the woods right now for wildlife. It's just not, but as they get into
Yeah.
the woods this for hunting season, hunters will be a front line for this too, to try to pay attention to see if they catch anything. And if they do, they need to turn that in, because there's an incentive here to detect, because if you detect, then you can come in with the sterile male flies and try to stop it, and try to overwhelm that particular area where there is a fly. Um, so it's key for people to detect, to be vigilant about it, so that we can use the other tools that we have as well.
Okay. I remember, was it in the 80s, I think, maybe early 90s? The time escapes me. In Kern County, California, you had was it the Mediterranean fruit fly or something to that effect? It was just really devastating. In that county, it's an agricultural county, lots of fruits and vegetables grown in that county. Of course, that was a
Yeah.
crop-eating pest, right?
That's right. And similar, and actually, one of the facilities in Mexico that is currently being converted to a screwworm, sterile male screwworm fly facility, is a fruit fly facility. And so
Okay.
they're trying to convert it over. That would get us an extra 60 to 100 million head of, or I shouldn't say head, I'm thinking in cattle terms, so 60 to 100 million flies per week.
That's incredible.
Hopefully that'll be online this year. It's fascinating,
Yeah.
isn't it?
That's just incredible. And some brilliant folks that came up with the idea. And my guess is it's probably because they looked at all the other options and said, yeah, it's not like we can just go spray, or apply some sort of protection product, chemical, and deal with this. And whatever the chemical is they came up with probably would do more harm to the environment, which would not be smart. So this is incredible. It's brilliant. I appreciate you coming on. Enjoy the conversation, and appreciate the insight. We would have never known without that. So hopefully these things will stay out of the state of Mississippi. And by the way, Josh, can the folks call the MSU Extension Service, farmers in particular, if they have this issue, to find out more?
Absolutely. We've got some info up. Mississippi Board of Animal Health is also a great resource, but here at Extension, we're always happy to help producers, consumers, whoever.
Okay. And pet owners need to be looking out for open wounds on their pets, and if they see that, see something crawling around in there, call their vet, right?
Yep, call their vet, and their vet is in line to report it up. So, absolutely.
Got it. Appreciate it, Josh. Thanks for coming on.
Thank y'all.
For coming right back in the Element Well